Literacy Day at the Midland Public Library. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jen and I'm the Adult and Teen Services Coordinator here at Midland Public Library. In this video, acclaimed mystery author Gail Bowen talks about the importance of literacy and reads from her new adult novel, The Unlocking Season.
Hi, I'm Gail Bowen and I'm very happy to be able to join you all today for Family Literacy Day at the Midland Public Library. Literacy has always had a special place in my heart, and so when I was thinking about what I could mention before I began to read here, I was thinking about something that occurred a few years ago when I was in Vancouver. I was with the esteemed mystery writer Ruth Rendell, the Baroness Rendell of Baberg, and she and I were featured writers at the Vancouver International Writers Festival. The festival had arranged for Ruth and I, to go and speak to a group of mystery lovers at the new Vancouver Public Library. We were to be joined by Earl Emerson, another mystery writer who was flying his own plane up from Seattle. And the idea was that the mystery lovers would ask us questions, and we could celebrate the library together. It was a terrific idea. Like many terrific ideas, it went awry. The rain was coming down in sheets the way it can only in Vancouver that day. My publicist and I had arrived at CBC, and we were sitting in the waiting room, and we waited and waited and waited, and no one came. Earl Emerson did not arrive, and finally there was a call from Earl Emerson saying he could not fly from Seattle because of the weather. So we sat and we waited for Ruth Rendell. And so we waited again, waited and waited. Then all of a sudden the front door to CBC opened, and Ruth Rendell's publicist kind of pushed her into the room, and Ruth Rendell and then the publicist disappeared, ran off in the rain with her umbrella. And Ruth Rendell was very, very wet, very angry, and was not in a mood to discuss anything with us. We were already very late, so the CBC producer and my publicist said, we have to get going right now. So they set out. Ruth Rendell and I were left together, and so we walked behind them. And Ruth Rendell, she was just stony. I could just feel the anger kind of coming off her body. And she said, finally, I suppose if we're involved in this endeavor, we should introduce ourselves. And I said yes. And she said, I'm Ruth Rendell. And I said, oh, I'm Gail Bowen, which of course meant absolutely nothing to her. But anyway, we just kept walking, and I looked, and I could see she was wearing this incredibly expensive fashion boots that were just wrecked by the Vancouver rain, and her hair was sodden, and she was just livid. And I thought, this is going to be a disaster, because this interview is not going to work at all. So anyway, we got down to the end of the block, and then all of a sudden, just a moment of grace or something, I turned to her and I said, do you remember the day you got your first library card? And she just stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, and her face just softened. She said, I felt I'd been given the keys to the kingdom. She said it was the most important day of my life, because I realized that once I had that library card, I could discover all of the things I needed to know to become the person I wanted to be as a woman. And so I realized then that phrase, the keys to the kingdom, is exactly what those of us who are fortunate enough to be in a position to help others who are struggling with literacy, we have that gift in our power to give them, the keys to the kingdom, and everyone has a right to that. Everyone has a right to the chance to become the best person they could be. So Ruth Rendell is no longer on this earth, but that story will always resonate with me, because I think it says what needs to be said today at your Family Literacy Day. Now, I'm going to read to you not too much from The Unlocking Season, which is the 19th Joanne Kilbourne Shreve mystery. And it's at a point, Joanne has co-written a script for a 6-part TV series entitled Sisters and Strangers about her own very troubled relationship with her family and with the Love family that with whom she grew up. And so in the this is the opening of the end, and anyway, I think this will become self-evident. But this is a meeting that takes place at something called, they're called table meetings, and I have been to many of them in theater, and it's a really exciting time. It's show and tell time, and it's when everyone who has been writing on his or working on his or her own comes together around a table and then shows what they have to offer. Obviously, you know, what all I had to offer was a script, so everyone had the script, but everyone comes and they have, the designer has the clothing designs and the musicians have the musical director has the music and so on, you know, sets and all so on. So everyone brings what they have to offer, and it's an exciting day. Joanne's nervous and mostly because she's unsure about whether she really should be telling this story. It's a difficult story for her to tell. So anyway, we begin now. The table meeting was being held at the Living Skies office in what was called, accurately, if unimaginatively, the big room. Georgie was waiting for me inside the building. When I arrived, standing beside her was a broad-shouldered, imposing man with obsidian eyes, a mellow brown complexion, a shaved head, and a captivating smile. Georgie introduced him as Hal Dupuis, the costume designer for Sisters and Strangers, and when Hal's large, strong hand enclosed mine, I felt the warmth of connection. "You're Miss Ellard," he said. "Thank you for sharing the home movies Ben Ben-Dur made of your family's life. They've been an inspiration." "Please, call me Joanne," I said, "and it's Joanne Shreve. I haven't been an Ellard for almost 4 decades." He bowed. "I apologize." Hal Dupuis' voice was low and sonorous, and he spoke with the precision of a man who treasured language. "I didn't know about your marriage," he said. "We've only been given the films of the years between your birth and your 16th birthday." A frisson of apprehension rippled through me. I didn't realize those movies had been circulated. "Then I must apologize again," Hal said. "But please know those home movies have been invaluable, not just to me and to my colleagues at Makeup and Wardrobe, but to the production designer, the locations manager, the set construction collaborators, the movie producer, the food stylist, everybody." I was overwhelmed. Suddenly it seemed that, like Alice, I'd stumbled headfirst into the rabbit hole. "There's a food consultant?" Hal Dupuis' hearty laugh seemed to come from somewhere deep within. "Oh yes," he said, "and he has had far too much fun learning how to make candied violets the way Nina Love did." Hal cupped my elbow in one of his large hands. "Let's go in and meet everyone. Once you see the ways in which we've used what you have given us, perhaps you'll forgive us for being intrusive." There were perhaps 25 people at the meeting, except for Nick Kovacs, who greeted me with a hug, and Ainsley, Georgie, and Fawn Tatusis. I knew no one, but as Hal guided me around, making the introductions, everyone was cordial and commented on how helpful Ben Ben-Dur's home movies had been to their preparations. Ainsley was at the head of the table, and when she spotted me, she gestured to the 3 empty places to her right, and Georgie, Hal, and I settled in. "I should have told you about the movies being circulated," Georgie said. "Don't worry," I said. "They've obviously served a purpose." Georgie tended her fingers and looked at them thoughtfully. "There's something else. Because of the movies, everyone at this table feels intimately connected with your family and Sally's. But for us, you're all just characters to be dressed or lighted or moved in and out of scenes. No one will be intentionally insensitive, but Ainsley cut her off. I'll handle this, Georgie. She was very pale, and the circles beneath her eyes seemed to have darkened with every sleepless night. Ainsley was 44, Roy's age. The night they danced, so blissfully to begin the beguine, it seemed that they were two people whom age would never touch. But they had been mortal after all. Now, 5 months later, Roy was dead, and Ainsley was suddenly old. As soon as she turned to face the group, the chatter stopped, and the room became silent. Before we begin, she said, I'd like to welcome Joanne Ellard-Shreve to the table and ask everyone to remember that the characters we're dealing with were people Joanne knew and loved. I know you will show them and Joanne the respect they deserve. She turned to the series producer. Now, Fawn will get us started. I had only met Fawn Tatoussis on a few occasions, but each time I had been impressed by her quiet intelligence and her composure. She'd spent years in the film industry and had also learned the importance of watching and listening from the elders on Poundmaker Cree Reserve near Cutknife, Saskatchewan. Fawn looked around the room and said, we are all, and then the heads turned as soon as Kyle Daly walked into the room. He was late and embarrassed. Fawn gave him a forgiving, we've all been there smile, and waited until he settled in before she spoke. Fawn's long-fingered hands were graceful and expressive, as essential to communicating her thoughts as her words. As she began again, she held out her hands, palms up, in a gesture of inclusion. We are all missing Roy today, she said. This past week has been difficult for us, and we are still reeling. But ready or not, we must move on. Roy once told me that when he was hurting, his work took him out of himself. Remembering Roy's words, let's get to work and hope for the best. This is primarily a creative meeting, so this is the time for me to step back, listen, and take notes. I have met with you individually, and each of you has identified your department's needs and flagged possible bumps in the road. I'll be meeting regularly with heads of departments, but if you discover you need special equipment, run into an unexpected expense, or face a problem with time, please let me know. I'll end by saying what I always say. No path is without obstacles. They are as frustrating as they are inevitable, but often the way you overcome the obstacles opens a new creative path. So hang in there. Try the options, talk them out, and if nothing works, remember we are all in this together. Everyone working on this project has the same goal. We all want to make something incredible. We are co-creators. We've got you covered. You are safe. And that begins that meeting, and of course quite an adventure for Joanne. But just to say that as far as literacy is concerned, we are all co-creators. We are all, as a writer, I am constantly dealing with a work in progress. As people who are treasuring literacy, you are all going to be working hard to achieve the keys to the kingdom that Ruth Rendell spoke about all those many years ago. So thank you again for allowing me to be part of this very exciting day for Midland Public Library.